Hey guys, my name is Deb Marnie and I'm from Aussie Maille. This is our chainmail tutorial channel. Hey guys, big hi, hello, welcome, how are you? Thanks for popping in and spending some time with me. It is great to see you here. Okay guys, so today I have another weave tutorial for you. This time it is for the paddle wheel chain, which is a Helm Weave variant. So if you're familiar with Helm Weave, you'll have no problems with this one at all. Alright guys, let's jump to it. Okay guys, so I've got some sample pieces made up of the paddle wheel chain weave for you. I'll have the ring sizes that I used for these pieces come up here on the side, as well as list them down below in the description section, but I'll just run through them quickly with you. Now this weave on Maille Artisans used 1 gauge size with 2 ring IDs. I found I didn't quite like the way that it sat like that, so I've chosen to use 2 gauge sizes, 2 ring IDs. Okay, so just to go through this quickly with you, this large one over here uses 14 gauge AWG 1.6mm diameter wire in ring IDs of 9 and 1/4 inch, which is 6.35mm. It also uses those same ring sizes in 16 gauge AWG 1.2mm wire. So the rings that you see here, the orbiting rings, are the 16 gauge 9mm, and the connecting silver rings here are the 16 gauge 1/4 inch. With the middle size here, the large silver rings on the outside are 16 gauge AWG 1.2mm diameter wire, ring ID of 7mm, and the coloured rings are 16 gauge, also 3/16 of an inch, 4.76mm. The other sizes are again 7mm in 18 gauge AWG 1mm diameter wire, so the orbiting rings here are the 18 gauge rings, and the connecting rings here, 18 gauge 3/16 here as well. Now, the 20 gauge version I'm not really happy with. It's a little stiff. I couldn't come up with a combination I was really happy with, but I'll just mention these ones here that I did. So in 18 gauge AWG 1mm diameter wire, the 2 ring sizes are 5.5mm for the outside large rings, and 5/32 of an inch, 3.97mm for the coloured anodized rings. The same ring IDs again in 20 gauge, which is 0.8mm wire, so 20 gauge 5.5 for the orbiting rings, and 20 gauge 5/32 for the connecting rings. But just to show you, it's not as flexible in all directions. You can see it's sort of locking up there. You can kind of make it flexible in one direction. It just doesn't quite work as well as these two do. I really like this particular version, which is the size that I've always done it in. I think that works well. Surprisingly, I don't mind the 14 gauge version. If you like your chunkier jewellery, that's really nice. And although I really do think that 20 gauge version is pretty, it's just not 100% for me. But if you're looking for a 20, sort of like an 18-20 gauge version, a finer version, then you might try these as a starting point. Okay guys, so I'm going to do this in the larger version, the 14 and the 16 gauge version. So to differentiate between the ring sizes, I'll have 16 small, which is the 1/4 inch, 16 large, which is the 9mm, and then 14 small, which is the 1/4 inch and 14 gauge, and 14 large, which is the 9mm. So to start with, take up one of your 16 small rings and pop on 2 of your 14 small rings. Now you can pre-close those rings if you like. The 14 gauge, what is the anodized aluminium rings. or you can just pop them on like I have and then go through and close them when we're done. So I'm going to double up that silver ring, and then I'm going to close these up. Okay, and then I'm going to take up a twist tie and I'm going to put that through the 16 small silver rings. Okay. And then once I've done that, I'm going to grab one of my 14 large rings, feed it through, and I'm going to pop on a second one. So on the other side, it doesn't really matter if you don't do it like that. They're easy enough to sort of manipulate around. But basically we want to end up with one pair of the 14 gauge rings so that you can see the anodized rings, the 1/4 inch rings, nestle inside the 9mm rings. Okay, so once you've got that, you want to take up one of the 16 smalls again and feed that through all 4 of the rings that you just added. Okay. Double that ring up. And then next we're going to add our orbiting ring. Now, if you've never seen Helm Weave before, you might want to check out our tutorial on the basic Helm Weave. If this looks a little bit confusing to you, it might be worth doing that one first before you take on this one. It's the same sort of thing, except here we're dealing with a couple of extra rings. So this time I'm going to take up one of my 16 large. So this is the 9mm ring in the 16 gauge. And these will be our orbiting rings. So to do that, we come back to our sets of rings here at the beginning. And I'm going to slip this ring in between one set. So one set has the bright aluminium and the anodized aluminium ring in it. I want to just slip it between them. It's not going to go through those rings in any way. It just nestles in between them, comes out the other side, and it orbits the 16 gauge small rings. So once we've got it in that position, we want to close that ring up. Okay, and our work should look like this. I'm then going to grab one of our 14 gauge small rings and I'm going to feed it through those small rings there on one side of the middle ring that we just placed. And I'm going to put another one on the other side. Just like that. Then I'm going to take up a 14 large and feed it through the same path. So one on each side of our center ring so that it encircles the anodized rings that we just placed. One on this side as well. Okay. So our work looks like this. And then we want to lock those last 4 rings into place. So we do that by taking up a 16 small, feeding it through all 4 of those rings, closing it up, and of course doubling that ring. Okay, and then we want to place our orbiting ring just like we did before. So taking up one of our 16 large, going between the pairs of the 14 gauge rings, so you can see it a little bit clearer now because we've got this ring here already in place. It has separated this pair for us. So we can see quite easily the path that we want that ring to take. Okay, it just slips in between both pairs till it comes out and encircles the smaller 16 gauge rings. And we close that up. And we just keep doing like we did before. So placing our anodized rings first. These are the 14 gauge small. Okay, one on each side of the center ring, of the orbiting ring. And then we place the larger 14 gauge rings so that they orbit, or not orbit, but go around, I guess orbit, the anodized rings that we just placed. Okay. Lock those 4 rings that we just placed into position by using our 16 small ring, making sure we pick up all 4, doubling that ring up. And we just keep going. So our next ring is our orbiting ring. Again, it just goes between the last pairs of 14 gauge rings there. So it just slips in between them. Okay, it doesn't go through them in any way, it just goes between them, encircling the smaller 16 gauge rings. And we just keep repeating as we have been going, guys. So that's it. That is the paddle wheel chain weave. So it's a simple variation on Helm, but I find it visually appealing. You can do a couple of different things with the colors. You don't have to follow the exact positioning that I've put the colors in here. That would be totally up to you. So you can make more of them anodized, less of them anodized, whatever works for you. But yeah, that's it, guys. Really, really simple. But I think it's quite nice. I like it. Alright, my lovelies, well that's it. That is the tutorial today. I hope you enjoyed it and it was of help to you. If you did like the tutorial, don't forget to give it a thumbs up here on YouTube. Any questions or comments, leave them below in the comments section and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. While you're here, if you're not a subscriber, maybe consider doing that for us. Check out some other content while you're here. We've got plenty for you to peruse. And last but not least, guys, don't forget to give our shop link up here in the corner a little bit of love and affection. That's where we sell all the bits and bobs and you know what's that you're going to need to weave up this one and many of our other tutorials. Alright guys, take care. I hope you're keeping safe and well and I'll see you sometime in the very near future. Bye.